So I believe that we have a student who's going to come and sit in the orange chair and ask the first question.
What would you like us health and social care students to know about dementia?
Oh, okay. So a good question to start us off. David, go on.
I think there are two things really. There is, first of all, the willingness to learn. And the second thing is to think of what's going on from now on as a kind of evolutionary process. You start with getting some information. And as I recall my early life, okay, that goes in. But it then needs to be joined up to a certain amount of practical experience to go alongside it. And so if you can get the understanding, because the point about being able to work with people with dementia is understanding and being willing to put yourself into it. So it's partly about the way in which you manage yourself.
Yeah, as somebody living with dementia, the one thing I would want you to know is that, and this isn't my quote, this is a quote that's used, but I absolutely love it. And as some people would say, and I would agree with it, is if you meet one person with dementia, you meet one person with dementia. Everybody is different. The thing I would want students to come out of this is that preconceptions are broken down, that they don't presume they know what somebody with dementia is going to be like. That they meet everybody on an equal term, and they don't presume that all dementias are end stage. That there's people living with dementia who are still very active and still very involved in things. So as I say, that's something I would really, really be keen that the students would learn.
Getting to know the people, talking to them, listening to them, because they'll tell you some fabulous stories, some of which will be true and some which won't. But they'll be fabulous either way. So it's important to listen to those stories and to enjoy that conversation with them.
Yeah, a lot of good points have been made there. You may well come across the phrase that the person's got challenging behaviour. And it's not actually their behaviour that's challenging, it's just their needs are not being met. And so the way to get around that is to listen very carefully to what the person has to say. And as Keith said, sometimes their reality is not actually your reality. What they believe to be true may not necessarily be true, but you need to go along with it. Because there's nothing worse than being contradicted and told, no, that's not right, because all that does is just diminishes the person and makes them feel even worse. So really, listening matters. That's the real title, really. Listening matters.
I was going to build on what everyone else has said. Because I do a lot of work in the Dementia Friendly Communities Project, a lot of my kind of interest is how people manage in our communities. And so a big part of what people are missing is a perception. The way they actually see their surroundings. And so, as Chris said, someone might say something that you don't quite understand, but it might be the way they're perceiving what they're seeing. Maybe to them today, the sky does look green, or perhaps they've forgotten the word and they've got blue and green as words mixed up. There's lots of reasons why they might say that. And this challenging behavior, I hate that. I like to look at it the other way around. It's behavior that challenges us to understand what the person needs, or what they're trying to tell us, or what's going on with them, or what they're misunderstanding.
Hi, I'm Lewis, and this is a question for the people who have experience with caring for people with dementia. I just wanted to know what other hardships come with caring for those with dementia, and how can you deal with it?
Really good question. Okay, so carers among us. Go on, David.
Well, I think it's very much about your personality and how you can identify the fact that you have to respond in particular ways. So it's patience, and I know that's something that is slightly more difficult when you're younger, as I recall. I mean, I'm 80 odd now, but you do have to learn a lot more about yourself and how you can therefore cope with all the lovely variety of situations that have been presented to you.
Well, first of all, my comment is linked to labels. And so often we use the label of carer, which is a valid label, and it has some important messages behind it. But I just want to throw a note of caution around that, because I don't know whether any of you students have got family members who have dementia, but if you have, they're probably maybe grandparents, and they would see you and your parents as family members, not as carers. So they would see you as grandson or granddaughter, and maybe your mums and dads as daughters and sons. And those relationships need to be maintained and nourished and celebrated.
Well, that was lovely. Actually, I'm just sticking, mine sounds miserable because I'm just sticking to what the hardships might be. And I've tried to, I mean, there are hardships that family carers and non-family carers will have. One of the most important one, well, no, there isn't a most important one, but they're not going to, the person with dementia is not going to remember not necessarily going to remember who you are, what you're doing. And it's sometimes very hard to be patient, especially if, well, because we're all busy, very hard to be patient. And but you have to explain all over again. And again, like we said earlier on, you need to be calm about it and nice about it, rather than and so many of us were teachers, and you know how snappy teachers can be. It's just important to try to get yourself in a role as almost as if you're acting being the nice you rather than being the impatient you. That's important. It's hard to be patient, and for a family member it sometimes feels very unfair because nobody's asked for this to happen to the person, and nobody's asked, well, some people might, but not many people want their main thing in life to be having to look after somebody who's having problems. I have to say that, really. And for a family member, the fact they don't necessarily know you, but they can be a nice thing. I've said this before, but my mother said to me once, "I don't know who you are, but I know that I love you." And I mean, that was such a moment of joy.
I'm Harley, and my question is there any common misconceptions people make about dementia?
Fab question. Right, I can see that. Oh, okay, Alison, go for it.
Yeah, I think for me the common misconception is that they think everybody's the same and everybody's needs are the same, and that people presume they know what you need or want or what they should be doing rather than asking. And that's the thing that would really frustrate me. You know, ask me what I want, ask me what I need, rather than presuming, oh, Alison needs me to do this, this, and this. Because there's nothing more frustrating than somebody doing something that you're more than capable of doing yourself, even if it is with a bit of assistance. So it would be just don't presume, you know, take everybody at face level and get to know the person and get to know their needs.
Alison's, because her internet connection isn't quite as good today, perhaps. While she was talking, can you see that it was taking a long time for her picture to coordinate with what she was saying? And to me, that kind of sums up what dementia does to me sometimes. Sometimes the person's talking to me, but I'm in that kind of slow motion mode, having difficulty understanding. And as with Alison's picture, it was having trouble keeping up with what she was saying verbally. And I think that just kind of sums up what sometimes it's like to live with dementia. The people are talking to you, but you're just really going 100 miles an hour trying to keep up with what they're trying to say. So, sorry.
You've met this morning 3 people with dementia. And I guess hopefully those 3 people have challenged possibly some of the stereotypical images that you and maybe other people have of what someone with dementia is like.
Don't disable people by taking over. Enable them to keep going as long as they can. And people will always surprise you. I mean, in every part of our life, people surprise us, but particularly when you're working with people who've got memory problems, what they can still do. And just because they can't do one thing, don't assume that means they're at the same level with everything else they do.
This one's mainly directed towards people with dementia. If you're having a bad day, what would your coping mechanism be?
We do go into this land of fogginess, and one, you just have to think, well, today may be difficult, but tomorrow is going to be a brighter day. And it's like the weather, isn't it? Today might be overcast as it is here, but tomorrow it might be sunny.
Chris is a very talented musician and does a lot of band playing, and that's one of the things that you do, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, I do. When I pick up my horn, as I play the notes, as they float away, my cares seem to float away with them.
I think sometimes a good brisk walk helps. Sometimes chilling out helps. Sometimes talking to somebody helps. It really just does depend upon what the difficulty is.
Definitely a cuddle of a golden retriever does wonders.
It's been absolutely wonderful. We can only thank you so much for your honesty and allowing us to have an insight into what you're living with, and also, you know, we tip our hats to you. You're living amazing lives, so that's fantastic. Please carry on. Thank you.
Okay, well, Julia, Keith, David, Chris, Alison, Jane, take care. Have a lovely rest of the day, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
No worries.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.